Ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to introduce the Deputy Chairman, Group Finance Director of John Keells Holdings PLC, with an extensive expertise in finance, accounting, taxation, corporate finance, strategy, treasury, IT, and corporate communications. He brings a wealth of experience to his role. He previously chaired Nations Trust Bank PLC and holds an MBA from Rice University. He is a fellow member of the Chartered Institute of Management Accountants UK and a certified management accountant of the Institute of Accountants Australia. Additionally, his diploma in marketing from the Chartered Institute of Marketing UK further underscores his proficiency. Please welcome Gihan Cooray, our chief guest and orator for this evening.
Good evening, everyone. Our guest of honor, Gihan Cooray, Chairman of the Colombo Stock Exchange, President of the CFA Society Sri Lanka, Aruna Pereira, all the charter holders and finalist graduates, and the families and well-wishers of everyone who's here. First of all, thank you very much for inviting me here today to speak to you. I'm deeply honored and humbled by being asked to address this gathering. When I look around the room, I can see many people who probably could do a much better job of being an orator here. So I will do my best to use the next maybe 15-20 minutes to maybe share some insights and hopefully something that all of you could take away. Firstly, I'd just like to start off, I think the speakers before me spoke of the rigor of the CFA qualification, the ethics, the network, how difficult it is to achieve what you all have done. So congratulations to everyone. It is a tremendous achievement and you should be very proud of yourselves for having achieved that, and it's just the beginning of, I'm sure, a very exciting journey for many of you. Just a personal anecdote I'd like to share with you is, 20-something years ago when I was doing my MBA in the US, a couple of my colleagues or friends at the time were doing CFA exam, and I did consider it. I was coerced to look at the syllabus and to join them, but it just seemed too daunting, to be honest, for me. And I thought, no, I really don't want to embark on this challenge, and here I am today without having started it or ending it. So I think, for you all to have gone through it and ended up where you are speaks volumes of the commitment and dedication of everything you have done. As I always look at qualifications, they are sort of the doors or pathways that open doors for us, and it's really not to take anything away from what I said and what you all have achieved, but from that point on, it's really a question of what you bring to the table, how you advance your careers. And the qualifications provide a fantastic platform or foundation, but everything else is really the softer skills, the other side of things that really help you go up the corporate ladder, or even if it's not about going up the corporate ladder, in terms of really making an impact in terms of what you do. So what I'd like to share with you today is just my own personal learnings and insights through my own journey, and hopefully some of these will resonate with you and leave you with something that could be helpful. So as we spoke of the achievement of what you all have done, I think at the same time it is very important to be humble about what you have achieved. In my own career, when I was moved up once, I remember one of our senior leaders telling me, keep your feet on the ground. It's something, it's not for me to judge, but I've always remembered that and tried to live by it, and hopefully I do. And also to remember that you don't have to be the smartest person in the room. I know obviously qualifying, passing for an exam means you really have to bring your best to the table. But as you get into your working life and careers and move up, you have to actually rely on many facets of your own skills, but also relying on other people, the teams and peers. So I think that's something that has held me in good stead in terms of remembering that certainly I will not be the smartest person in the room. And it is about being able to understand where your strengths are, where your skills are, and be able to work collaboratively with people and teams. Because ultimately your success is actually not about achieving something individually, but as a collective. And I think that's something I'd really like to stress on for you all to remember as you sort of embark on advancing your own careers. Being obviously, I'm talking to a forum or August assembly here of finance professionals. So if you look at being very analytical, data-driven, it's all about the numbers. But when you get to a boardroom, the numbers do matter, no doubt. And it should be data-driven decision-making, as we say. But it's also being able to cut through that clutter. Being able to, being a financial analyst, we all love working fancy models, looking at everything, playing around with it, and that's something we've done. But how do you translate that to something at a boardroom level, at a leadership level, that people can actually decipher and understand? So I think it's being able to make those connections, being able to get that point across, because we see it with our teams. People have done fantastic financial analysis, and there's spreadsheets and spreadsheets of work that's been done. But in the end, you're having a discussion in maybe 20-30 minutes about a particular project, trying to understand what's behind it. And whilst the rigor of everything that's done is very essential, it's really about being able to connect those dots. Just some other areas I wanted to sort of touch on, and maybe throughout my speech I will discuss or touch on these in a little more detail. But today, in a world of AI or Gen AI, there's a lot. I mean, it's early days. We all talk of the different aspects, implications of AI. I myself probably am a late adopter in terms of starting to use Microsoft Copilot in our organization and just learning certain aspects of it. And no, this speech wasn't written by Copilot, just in case you all wonder. But having said that, today when we look at a lot of things that we can do, it's early days, like I said, but there's a lot of impact. And it's sort of mind-boggling when you think of the type of things that AI can do. So whether it is even looking at data models, all the different machine learning, there's a lot that can be replaced in a sense. And I'm not saying it's today, tomorrow, it could be many years down the road. But at the same time, you still need people behind taking those decisions. So I think it's important that whatever we do, that we remember to bring our own individuality to the table. Because today we can say, yes, at a click of a button, AI or Copilot or whatever else will generate a response or give you a speech or whatever it is. But I think it is still about how we bring individuality to that type of decision making. I don't know what a world 50 years from now will be, but certainly we're still going to rely on leaders to take decisions, and that is very much the equation. So whilst a lot of the work that we do, the models that are done, maybe can get replaced with some form of artificial intelligence, it doesn't take the human intelligence out of the equation. But what really then will differentiate you and I will be that individuality that we bring to the table. I'd just like to maybe talk about a couple of other things in terms of purpose and careers and communication, but maybe I'll just leave that, park that for a few moments. So at John Keells, we recently launched what we call the success drivers, or it's really the competency framework that we've sort of formalized. We've had it before, but we looked at the different elements that will matter to people, our people. And what are those basic fundamental competencies that we look for in people. So part of it was about, how we communicate it, how we make it easy to understand. And whilst we have 9 different elements to that, and don't worry, I'm not going to go through those and talk to you about each of those, but I think there were a couple that really resonated with me. I touched on it briefly. We call it connecting the dots. And I think this is very important because us, even I as a finance professional, you can get lost in the detail. You can get lost in the numbers, the clutter, and in the end, like I said earlier, at a boardroom level, that does matter, but it's really being able to connect the dots between the different elements of finance strategy and ultimately being able to differentiate yourself in terms of what we do. So I think that's something just to always keep in mind. When I was studying, when we were put in groups, I was generally the silent one. You don't have to be always the first to speak, because at times you find that people will want to express their views, but I find that just assimilating, taking a step back, gathering that information, and then really looking at how you want to respond or problem solve is something that has generally helped me. So keeping in mind that big picture, it's not to say the detail doesn't matter, but bringing both together is really where you can make a difference and make an impact. For many years, I know now it may seem something that may be cliched or even beyond its time, but I've always spoken of emotional intelligence and understanding, you deal with people, like I said, and whatever our success is because of the teams that we work with, our peers, our colleagues, juniors, whoever it be. And I think dealing with people with that emotional intelligence, having empathy, understanding people's perspective, and even when we take decisions, it's not only about teamwork. I find that has been something that has really helped me and guide me in terms of what we do. So that's just something I'd like you all to just keep in mind. I'm sure it's something you're aware of. The last element of the competencies I want to talk about is storytelling or communication. It's about being able to articulate what you want. You can have the best idea, the best financial model, the best analysis, but it's being able to get your point across. And storytelling doesn't mean it's not necessarily verbal, it's written, whatever it be, but being able to get that point across. From 20-something years ago, public speaking has been not my forte. It still isn't my forte. It's not something I like. It's not something I necessarily enjoy. But at the same time, I think it's about being able to just structure how you build, how you tell a story. And whilst, like I said, it's not about public speaking, but in a discussion, in a forum, in a boardroom, I think it's being able to, like I said, connect the dots, but being able to articulate the thoughts that you have as well. So I think that's something I think you can't really underscore the importance of that. When we interview people at JKH, or I talk to people, we ask questions, and sometimes once people get recruited, they have a chat and say, how come you didn't ask a lot of technical questions? So I hardly ask anything technical, because I think we leave it to the institutes, great institutes like CFA, to have the rigor in terms of saying if someone passed an exam, I'm sure they know their technical stuff, right? So what is there for us to check in terms of technical capability? So I think what's really important is to really understand some of these elements. Of course, every person you interview with or talk to will have their own style. But I think a lot of people really what they look for is genuineness in terms of an approach, understanding the attitude, having a positive, it's not that you say yes to everything, but I think just having that attitude that says, okay, I should be able to work this out. So I think for me, that's what I look for. And I think the people who have come through that, you see that in terms of the leaders, the young people who have come through the organization, really it's people with those traits and characteristics that have succeeded. It's not to say that, obviously the foundation is there, but it's again how you bring that to life. Today, if you look at organizations, you talk of purpose-driven organizations, there's a lot of focus on areas like the environmental, social, governance, ESG aspects. And again, this can seem cliched, but I think if you look at organizations and the impact, this is becoming or is very much topical. It's not something that is a passing phase. If you look at our investors at John Keells, whilst a lot of them will ask us about performance, quarterly analysis, strategy, this is very much a conversation topic. If you look at some of our top shareholders, they're global institutional funds, they have now framework for how they would look at expectations of companies. And whilst today they will have voting policies in terms of what they expect companies to do, and over the next couple of years, I think it will be where it's not necessarily mandated from their perspective, but if corporates don't meet that criteria, it could be that they no longer are really able to invest in these companies. So I think from a corporate perspective as budding leaders, I think these are areas that we all need to embrace and take forward. Again, with genuineness, we can say, okay, we have ESG, we are having a framework for reporting, but you can see that this is something that is absolutely real. About a year ago, I met a Scandinavian fund, I met a fund from Finland. The initial chat, and it was a 1.5 fairly rigorous discussion, but it was all about ESG related aspects, management, philosophy, compensation. They didn't ask anything about the business. And at the end of the conversation, when I just clarified, you haven't asked anything about the business, they said, yeah, before we even onboard you as a prospective company that we could invest in, we need to complete this due diligence, this checklist, before we can onboard you. And it's only after that conversation and a follow-up conversation that they could even say, okay, now we'll talk business strategy and understand your company and look at valuations. So this is very much important for the companies, and I think in turn for us as leaders and individuals. So whilst corporates need to really define their purpose and what they are looking to achieve, I think then as individuals, it does not mean that I'm sitting here advocating or standing here and advocating that it should be ESG, but we need to have clarity in terms of what is our own purpose, and that does not have to be ESG. But I think having that clarity, just as much as we say it with corporates, is something that I think helps in life. The CFA Institute is very much known for integrity, ethics. I think Aruna spoke earlier of the fact that you can't pass the exam even if you get 100% if you fail ethics. So that is obviously, I'm preaching to the converted here in a sense, because obviously you all have gone through that rigor. But if you really look at it in terms of, we all know what we went through as a country. We talk about governance, we talk of change. And I think today in Sri Lanka, we have a genuine opportunity to make that change. This is not about politics or the establishment. We've squandered many an opportunity in this country, whether it was when we had peace talks in the early 2000s. I don't want to say opportunity in the context of the tsunami, which was a very unfortunate event, but at the same time, post that there was a chance for us to rebuild, to put aside our differences. That was very short-lived again, and we didn't use that chance to really take the country forward. We've had the end of the conflict in 2009, and again, after showing much promise, we have as a country still failed to really deliver on that. So we've had many chances to really move Sri Lanka forward, and we have not done so. I think whilst we had the financial crisis and it's tested everyone's resolve, every citizen of this country has had to endure a lot of pain. But at the same time, the silver lining is we have the opportunity to really build a strong platform, foundation for sustainable growth that will benefit everyone in this country. So leaving aside, obviously a lot of good things have been done in terms of the macro economy, and if you look at the budget and the roadmap that we've had. But I think coupled with that, and many people have spoken of this, is the fact that we need the underlying fact of a proper governance framework in this country. And I think whilst certain things have been brought in terms of bringing these checks and balances, I think there needs to be a far bigger push, and not just to rely on the political establishment, but whether it's the corporates, the chambers, and even us as individuals, to play our part. And I think that is the only way we can really achieve sustainable growth. The former governor of the central bank, Dr. Indrajit Kumaraswamy, used to talk of the start-stop policies that we have in this country and the cyclical nature of our growth. And part of that is really the fact that we don't have a consistency, but part of the reason of that lack of consistency is really the fact that we lack adequate governance frameworks in the country and the checks and balances. So I think that's something I'd really like to stress on and leave with us. And it starts with every small individual action that each and every one of us take. So if you look at it during the crisis, and I'm not trying to be virtuous here or talk about it, it's just that if you look at it and just introspect and ask ourselves, when we had fuel quotas of 20 liters, how many of us really stuck to 20 liters? So when we talk of government, establishment, governance, I think it's important that we do our part, as little as it is, because that's really the change that we can expect to see. And I think this is the opportunity for us to really make that lasting change, because the rest will fall in place. If you have that framework and balances in terms of policy making, as we've seen over the last 12 to 18 months, right things being done, the economic framework, the macro, you will see that pick up, and the sustainability of that is really what is important. Lastly, in terms of a couple of points I'd like to just leave with you, and generally my HR colleagues may not like what I say. and I'm talking to really the finalists and the graduates. Some of you all are obviously well into your careers, but at the same time, I think it's important to not necessarily plan your career. It's good to have ambitions, good to have a goal, but for me, I think it's the destination is not really what's important. What's really important is enjoying the moments, enjoying that journey. And if I ever talk to any of our young leaders or anyone starting off their career, and they ask me, so what should I plan to do? As long as you can have an idea, of course, as what you want to do, but keep learning, be passionate about what you do, because for me, I think that's very important. And rather than trying to target where I want to be or what I want to be or what designation or level, that will come if you have the right attitude, if you're working in the right place. I think you don't need to worry about that. And I think sometimes we put a lot of pressure on ourselves in terms of not being patient at times. So as long as you tick those boxes in terms of saying, I'm learning, I'm passionate, I like what I'm doing, I'm making an impact, and you're making a difference, I think the rest will flow. So generally my advice is be patient. I don't want to take too much more time. Celebrations are ahead of us. So to the graduates again, the finalists, the charter holders, congratulations. It's a job very well done. Keep the good work. Like I said, enjoy the journey. And like I said, don't necessarily put a timeline on your career. Stay in the moment. Of course, enjoy today and have a blast and celebrate it. It's well deserved. So thank you very much once again to the CFA Society for inviting me. And thank you very much to you all for listening to me. Wish you all the very best. Have a good evening.